妙蓮華南無妙蓮華南無妙蓮華。Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. That sounded bleh. How are you? We're starting a new Go show, Encouragement to a Sick Person. Now, I'm going to tell you ahead of time, this is very, Nichiren there are many writings that still exist, penned by Nichiren. But I want to caution you about the Go show in general, the same way that I've talked about the Lotus Sutra and other sutras. I've already discussed the hyperbolics involved and the personages that are given names, Bodhisattvas, Buddhas, etc. Reading Nichiren's Go show is a little different than all of that, because what we're reading now isn't sutra so much as it is scholarship on the sutra, and this is the thing that we're going to encounter in this Go show, personal notes that derive from and show examples from scholarship, Nichiren's scholarship and knowledge of the incredible breadth of teachings, sometimes called the 84,000 teachings, because that's a number that is almost unfathomable to read in one's lifetime. But it's all about scholarship. It's about correct understanding, okay? And a lot of these writings, Nichiren didn't sit down and write sutras. He didn't sit down and write, this is Buddhism, this is how Buddhism works. What he did instead was explain to the people of his time how the concepts of Buddhism throughout could be seen, observed, and could be utilized in one's daily life. So it's much more personal. Just like there's 125 extant Gohonzons, or Hanzons. There were more than that, I'm sure, but those are the ones that are still extant in some form and have been digitized. Some of those Hanzons were given to certain people, specific people, and say little more than Namu Myoho Renge Kyo down the middle with his signature, and maybe the Bodhisattva, the leaders of the Bodhisattvas of the earth on either side, or very popular is the medicine mandala, or the medicine Hanzon, also called the prayer Gohonzon. It goes by all different names. So I say all of this because when you're reading something that's intimate, meant for one person, what we're going to deal with is Nichiren's gift of explaining using expedient means, right? In order to teach a specific audience, either one person or a family, he takes into account that person's cultural reality, folklore that they've been admired in their lives, and he uses that knowledge and that thinking in order to bring them to greater understanding of Myoho Renge Kyo. So you'll hear some things occasionally, and you will in this sutra, or this Go show, sorry, that sound a little bit like, wow, I didn't know Buddhism was about that. But don't be confused. Understand that you're listening or you're reading, like looking over the shoulder of a personal note to encourage a person who has not only a sickness, but I don't want to call it sickness, but a preconception of their world. And Nichiren's sensitive to this. So he uses that and although Nichiren talks a lot about shakabuku, this is kind of a shoju. He mixes them a lot. And this is what we do today. We mix them. Sometimes people have to be, look, stop doing that. You have to tell them and correct them. Other times you have to say more gently, look, I understand how you see this, but look at this from a different perspective for a moment and see if it doesn't make better sense to you. That's shoju. You see the difference? And in today's world, we use both a lot. All right. So let's get into it. Encouragement to a sick person. I have heard that you are suffering from illness. Is this true? The impermanence of this world is such that even the healthy cannot remain forever, let alone those who are ill. So there's a fear of death here, obviously, that he's confronting. We all have it. But certainly in those days, in the shogunate, and medicine and its abilities in the 13th century, falling ill could be very serious very quickly. Thoughtful persons should therefore prepare their minds for the life to come. What we know this means is how you're going to come out of this sickness. But for a lot of people still in Nichiren's time, the idea of another place, an ensuing lifetime, the idea of a reincarnation of sorts, with this totally not Buddhism, but it's in the culture, so he kind of talks into it a little bit here, just to get them to follow. Okay? Yet one cannot prepare one's mind for the next life by one's own efforts alone. Only on the basis of the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, the original teacher of all living beings, can one do so. You see how he's already slipping away now from the idea of another lifetime, and how the Bodhisattva practice, you can't do this alone, okay? It requires that you assist others. The Buddhist teachings, however, are various, perhaps because people's minds are also differ greatly. Once again, he's giving everyone a clue, including us, that he's dealing with people at different stages of learning, right? Or capacity. In any event, Shakyamuni Buddha taught for no more than 50 years. Among the teachings he expounded during the first 40 and more years, we find the Flower Garland Sutra, which says the mind, the Buddha, and all living beings, these three things are without distinction. In other words, all the same thing. The Agama Sutras, which set forth the principles of suffering, emptiness, impermanence, and non-self. The Great Collection Sutra, which asserts the interpenetration of the defiled aspect and the pure aspect. The Larger Wisdom Sutra, which teaches mutual identification and non-duality. And the 2-volumed Meditation and Amida Sutras, which emphasize rebirth in the land of perfect bliss. All of these teachings were expounded specifically for the purpose of saving all beings in the former, middle, and latter days of the law. So here, this is the scholarship, and Nichiren always breaks out the library of knowledge that he has, right? And it's extremely helpful, especially to us today, to understand that it isn't just Nichiren's just not just some other guy with an opinion. It's well founded on scholarship. So here we go. Nevertheless, for some reason of his own, the Buddha declared in the Immeasurable Meaning Sutra, preaching the law in various different ways, I made use of the power of expedient means. But in these more than 40 years, I've not yet revealed the truth. Like a parent who has a second thoughts about the transfer deed he wrote out earlier, Shakyamuni looked back with regret upon all the sutras he had expounded during the previous 40 and more years, including those that taught rebirth in the land of perfect bliss, and declared that though immeasurable, boundless, inconceivable, asankaya kalpas may pass, they will in the end fail to gain unsurpassed enlightenment through these sutras. He reiterated, this is the expedient means chapter of the Lotus Sutra, saying, honestly discarding expedient means, I will preach only the unsurpassed way. By discarding expedient means, he meant that one should discard the Nembutsu and other teachings preached during those more than 40 years. Having thus undoubtedly regretted and reversed his previous teachings, he made clear his true intention, saying, "The world-honored one has long expounded his doctrines and now must reveal the truth." And for long he remained silent regarding the essential, in no hurry to speak of it at once. Thereupon many treasures Buddha sprang forth from beneath the earth and added his testimony that what Shakyamuni had said is true. And the Buddhas of the 10 directions assembled in the 8 directions and reached with their long, broad tongues to the palace of the great heavenly king Brahma in testament. All the beings of the 2 worlds and the 8 groups who were gathered at the 2 places and the 3 assemblies, without a single exception, witnessed this. Now this is, obviously, he's talking about all of the hyperbole in the various sutras and current to his day. Remember, the Nembutsu was very popular in his day. So there were a lot of stories circulating that they drifted outside the bounds of scholarship. But he's kind of wrapping all of that around. He's saying, all these stories, take them all. And look what the Lotus Sutra is saying. Not in these words specifically, and this may be interpreted a little bit off, but the root of the message is going to come out here. So don't get stuck on the words too much, okay? In light of the above sutra passages, setting aside evil people and non-Buddhists who do not believe in Buddhism, with regard to those who, though Buddhist believers, have devout resolute minds and conviction in provisional teachings preached before the Lotus Sutra, such as Nembutsu, and devote themselves to reciting it 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, or as many as 60,000 times a day, without chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo even once in the course of 10 or 20 years, are they not like a person who, clinging to the transfer deed already nullified by his parent, refuses to accept its revision, its revised version? They may appear to others as well as to themselves to have resolute mind and conviction in the Buddha's teachings, but if we go by what the Buddha actually taught, they are unfilial persons. This is why the 2nd volume of the Lotus Sutra states, quote, "But now this threefold world is all my domain, and the living beings in it are all my children. Now this place is beset by many pains and trials. I am the only person who can rescue and protect others, but though I teach and instruct them, they do not believe or accept my teachings." Now this is that strange hyperbole of Shakyamuni's teachings, where he embodies Buddha, but he's also Buddha-ness. Remember, he talks about suchness a lot, or what we would say today, thingness. What is the thingness of something? So the Buddha of something is the Buddha-ness of something, the suchness of Buddha, which we all have. So this is what he's saying. He's saying, me as Buddha, but Buddha as Buddha. You're Buddha. Okay, this passage means that to us living beings, the thus come one Shakyamuni is our parent. The thus come one from our human existence, the thus come Buddha in us is our parent. It's our guidance. It transcends all our childish attachments. You follow? Our teacher and our sovereign. Although Amida Medicine Master and other Buddhas are sovereign to us living beings, they are neither parents nor teachers. Shakyamuni is the only Buddha endowed with all 3 virtues and to whom we owe a profound debt of gratitude. So we have other awakening features, but they're not complete awareness. Shakyamuni represents full, total enlightenment. There's a difference between that and Amida, who understands that he can get to a better place. He's not a real person. He's the idea of a better worldview, a better mind. Shakyamuni is that mind. See the difference? There are parents and parents. yet none of them can equal Shakyamuni Buddha. There are all manner of teachers and sovereigns, but none as admirable as he is. Could those who disobey the teachings of this parent, teacher, and sovereign possibly not be abandoned by the heavenly gods and the earthly deities? They are the most unfilial of all children. It is for this reason that the Buddha said, "Though I teach and instruct them, they do not believe or accept my teachings. Even if they follow the sutras preached before the lotus and practice them for 100, 1,000, 10,000, or 1,000,000 kalpas, if they do not believe in the Lotus Sutra and chant Namo Myoho Renge Kyo even once, they will be unfilial. They will therefore be abandoned by the sacred ones of the three existences and the 10 directions, and hated by both the heavenly gods and the earthly deities." This is the first of the 5 guides for propagation. Okay. We haven't gotten to the sickness yet, but I think you get where this is going. If you don't practice Buddhism correctly, then the ills that befall you will, your determined mind, your convictions they're not right. And so they have little power or hope or effect on illness, because illness is karma. And if you're not practicing correctly, how can you expiate karma? How can you influence your life momentum into a better situation if the way you practice is flawed? So this is what he's leading up to. Even those people who commit the 5 cardinal sins, the 10 evil acts, or innumerable other wrongdoings, may attain the way if only their faculties are keen. Devadatta and Angulimala represent such people, and even those of dull faculties may attain the way, provided they are free of misdeeds. Chudapantaka is an example. The faculties of ordinary people are like ourselves, are even duller than those of Chudapantaka. We are unable to discern the colors and shapes of things as if we had a sheep's eye. In the vast depths of our greed, anger, and foolishness, we commit the 10 evil acts every day. And though we may not commit the 5 cardinal sins, we also perpetrate offenses similar to these daily. Moreover, every single person is guilty of slander of the law, an offense exceeding even the 10 evil acts, or the 5 cardinal sins. Although few people slander the Lotus Sutra with actual words of abuse, there are none who accept it. Some appear to accept the sutra, but their resolute mind and conviction in it is not as deep as their resolute mind and conviction in the Nembutsu or other teachings. And even those with profound resolute mind and conviction do not reproach the enemies of the Lotus Sutra. Now, I've brought this up. People have asked me about, they'll tell me about Theravada practices today and other practices that, they include the Lotus Sutra. Well, Nichiren is directly taking them to task here. Just because you recognize the Lotus Sutra as one of Buddha's teachings doesn't mean you give it its proper place, its primacy. And actually, the fact that you recognize it and go astray is far more problematic than if you didn't recognize it at all. However great the good causes one may make, or even if one reads and copies the entirety of the Lotus Sutra 1,000 or 10,000 times, or attains the way of perceiving 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, if one fails to denounce the enemies of the Lotus Sutra, it will be impossible to attain the way. And this passage right here is what gives me the confidence to point out error. To illustrate, it is like the case of someone in the service of the imperial court. Even though he may have served for a decade or two, if he knows someone to be an enemy of the emperor but neither reports him to the throne nor shows personal animosity toward him, all the merit of his past service will be thereby negated, and he will instead be charged with an offense. You must understand that the people of this age are slanderers of the law. This is the second point. Now, you notice in that statement, I want to remind you, he talks about an actual act, and the other is an attitude. In other words, if you don't show personal animosity toward him, what is that? You don't show him disdain. That's your attitude. Buddhism is always about intent attitude. The 1,000 years beginning from the day after the Buddha's passing are called the former day of the law, a period when there were many who upheld the precepts and people attained the way. The 1,000 years of the former day were followed by the middle day of the law, which also lasted 1,000 years. During this period, many people broke the precepts and few attained the way. The 1,000-year middle day is followed by the 10,000 years of the latter day of the law. During this period, people neither uphold the precepts nor break them. Only those without precepts fill the country. Moreover, it is called a defiled age, an age rife with disorder. Can't argue with that. In an uncorrupted age, called a pure age, wrong is discarded while right is observed, just as crooked timber is planed according to the mark left by a thread stretched straight. During the former and middle days of the law, the 5 impurities began to appear, and in the latter day they are rampant. They give rise to the great waves of a gale, which not only beat against the shore, but strike each other. The impurity of thought has been such that, as the former and middle days of the law gradually passed, people transmitted insignificant, erroneous teachings while destroying the unfathomable, correct teaching. It therefore appears that more people have fallen into the evil paths because of errors with respect to Buddhism than because of secular misdeeds. Now, the 2,000... Did you follow that? What he's saying is, as we've entered into this age of Mappo, this latter day that you and I are living in, the defilements, the problems that we're experiencing, the disarray, the arrogance, and so on and so forth, are more due to incorrect transmission of the Buddhist teachings than any kind of secular misdeeds, like wars, like apartheid, like racism, like name it. Incorrect transmission of Buddhism is more responsible for the disarray than all of that. How great a caution is this to our Buddhist practice? This is an amazing statement. Ponder that. Now, the 2,000 years of the former day and middle days of the law have passed, and it has been more than 200 years since the latter day began. Now is the time when, because the impurities of thought prevails, more people fall into the evil paths with the intention of creating good causes than they do by committing evil. As for evil acts, even ignorant people, if they recognize them for what they are, may refrain from committing them. This is like extinguishing a fire with water. But people think that good deeds are all equal in their goodness. Thus, they adhere to lesser good and do not realize that in doing so, they bring about major evil. Therefore, even when they see sacred structures related to Dengyo, Jikaku, and others that are neglected and in disrepair, they leave them as they are for the simple reason that they are not halls dedicated to the Nembutsu. Instead, they build Nembutsu halls beside those sacred structures, confiscate the lands that have been donated to them, and offer them to the halls they have erected. According to a passage of the sutra on resolving doubts about the middle day of the law, such deeds will bring few benefits. You should understand from the above that even if one performs a good deed, should it be an act of lesser good that destroys greater good, it will cause one to fall into evil paths. The present age coincides with the beginning of the latter day of the law. Gone completely are those people with the capacity to attain enlightenment through either the Hinayana or the provisional Mahayana sutras. There now remain only those whose capacity is suited solely to the true Mahayana sutra. A small boat cannot carry a large rock. Those who are evil or ignorant are like a large rock, while the Hinayana and provisional Mahayana sutras, as well as the Nembutsu, are like a small boat. If one tries to cure virulent sores with hot spring baths because the ailment is so serious, such mild treatment will be of no avail. For us, in this defiled world of the latter age, embracing the Nembutsu and other teachings is like working rice paddies in winter. It does not suit the time. This is the third. One should also have a correct understanding of the country. People's minds differ according to their land. For example, a mandarin orange tree south of the Yangtze River becomes a triple-leaved orange tree when it is transplanted to the north of the Huai River. Even plants and trees which have no mind change with their locations. How much more, then, must beings and minds differ according to the place? A work by the Tripitaka master, Swet Tsang, I'm going to get close to my half hour here. I'm going to keep this for the next video. But Nichiren is using this opportunity to teach this great friend, obviously an important friend, an important student, using his concern for that person's health, their illness, to demonstrate how their state of being, their health, and this may be a person who maybe still clings to some other teachings. Nichiren is taking this as a profound teaching moment and leading this person to understand that the incorrect following of lesser teachings is not helping their illness. And if they really want to be cured, if they want to get past this illness and prepare themselves for full enlightenment, they need to drop all this other stuff and concentrate on Myoho Renge Kyo. So this is what's happening. It's a very good gosho for delineating very and in a shakabuku attempt of breaking somebody's beliefs. But by using the shoju method of scholarship to create an impenetrable argument, a case that is argued to the nth degree and therefore must be understood or discarded altogether, right? So Nichiren does this a lot. So we'll continue. Thanks for listening so far. I so appreciate you guys. And I wish you nothing but success in your practice. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Take care.